And sure enough, it turns out to be accurate. My friend Joan Ocean, who swims with the dolphins almost every day in Hawaii on the Kona coast and has telepathic communication with them, comes back and has written some books and some videos about what the dolphins have to say to her. My friend Dr. Michael Wolf, consultant with the National Security Council, has revealed that the dolphins are a seeded extraterrestrial species. It's no accident why they have such large brains and intelligence. The whales also are another seeded extraterrestrial species. And these species have much to say. They've been around as long as we have on Earth. And Joan and others who communicate with them have messages to share. I hope you have Joan over here one time before long and hear the messages they have for us too. Other abilities these star kids and star seeds have: intuition, affecting electrical devices, not just street lights, but kid will go by and a radio will change channels, or their field's so strong it will burn out a wristwatch. The ability to see across dimensions. Sometimes a person will see something out of the corner of their eye. You look at it directly, it's not there. Or a child will see a presence in the room that the parents cannot see. Being able to see others' auras, and furthermore to see patterns within them in the color or the shape or the design, which tells information that's useful about how the person is doing physically or emotionally. Being able to do psychic diagnosis, being able to read a person and tell where there may be something wrong, an injury, an illness, a beginning disease. And psychic healing, the ability to harness energy and send it into a person to make a positive difference in their health state. Teleportation, moving an object from one place to another by mental effort. Affecting time. For example, a trip that normally takes an hour driving, and it's very important to get there, and things are due to no fault, there's a late start. These people can fold time inward so that a trip that normally takes an hour only is accomplished in half an hour without speeding up the car. Pre-sensitivity to disasters like earthquakes or automobile accidents, and letting people know so that harm can be minimized. Out-of-body travel. Serving as a conduit for off-world intelligences to come in and speak through the person and share communication. Having a sense of shared consciousness with a star visitor. The person is still there in their consciousness, but the star visitor is right alongside them in their head, as it were, and the person can share what that individual has to say. Being able to summon star visitors, come in, either physically or fly overhead and signal their presence. These are some of the psychic ability these kids have. Other ways in which they're different, their immune systems often are much more developed. They hardly ever, after the first set of childhood diseases that kind of build up your immunity, they hardly ever have flus or real severe colds. If they have some kind of an episode of injury or cut, bone break, it heals very rapidly. These kids often have, from the childhood, a very adult gaze, a very mature demeanor, almost like an adult in a child's body. Some of you who are psychics may have noticed this too. I am struck by the number of children, even in strollers, babies, who instead of that kind of blah blah, unfocused gaze you used to see in infants and strollers, many of these kids are focused. They're tracking their environment. They're locking on in eye contact and evaluating their environment with intelligence and awareness. I've tried to pull a few of these kids out of the closet with mental telepathy, saying, "Welcome to Earth." And watching the kid look at me like, "Why are you talking inside my head? Nobody else around here does that." They're busted. These kids are intuitively spiritual. Often they will not be particularly church-going, but they have a natural spirituality that recognizes supreme source over consciousness, the underlying matrix of awareness and intelligence that shapes the universe is to be revered and honored.
Well, thank you very much for visiting our wonderful country.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
How did you get involved with the subject of crop circles?
Incredibly enough, I was actually buying a shirt in Chicago, where I lived at the time, and I was watching television, and the sound was turned off, so I didn't know what the newscast was about. But I remember seeing this incredible picture. It was shot of this design in a field, this bizarre-looking design in a field, a series of sort of straight lines and circles stuck together. And it never occurred to me that it could have been some kind of environmental art. And as an artist, I was well aware of this type of art. It never occurred to me that it would have been some bunch of people with some lawnmowers that went around a wheat field making this incredibly beautiful design. And I knew exactly what it was when I saw it. I couldn't verbalize it, and I couldn't put any logical sense to it, but I knew exactly what it was when I saw it. And it was at that moment that part of me kind of woke up, as if it was a trigger, a subconscious trigger that helped me recognize what I was supposed to be doing here. And it might sound very strange, but on my travels I've met other people who likewise have been involved in this phenomenon to a very deep degree. They have the exact identical story as well when they see a picture on a magazine, on a poster, and they say it's almost like something has just woken me up. It's a trigger, a message that I sent myself from a long time ago to remind me of what I'm supposed to be doing now. So it seems to be sort of part of that awakening process that the crop circles have built into their design, that they seem to be triggers for people to be activated at some conscious level. And that's how I got involved.
So you just went from that point, you just flew to England and started examining, researching the whole crop circle phenomena.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing it more remotely. I mean, I lived in America at the time, and I kept trying to find information about the circles, little snippets of information here and there, books, and started scouring esoteric books about information on symbols, because I knew I'd seen these things somewhere. They seemed very, very logical to me, like a well-known language. And by about 1994, I'd spent a lot of time going back to England on my summer holidays and spending more time there on the ground, actually doing personal experience observations and looking at the way the plants work, the way the soil is working, talking to eyewitnesses, talking to other people that had been studying this for a while. It just became a bit of a passion, which turned into an obsession, to the point where I decided that the best thing to do was just sell the house, leave the wife behind, and return to England full time. So it's been a bit of a sort of painful and very expensive process, but as I keep joking about it, the fringe benefits have been incredible, because the things that you've experienced and the things that you've seen in terms of natural phenomena, or what I describe now as natural phenomena, because they're very much part of our real world, much more so than we're led to believe through normal channels. The fringe benefits have been fantastic.
Okay, so you've had the same experience, say, as Colin Andrews. I mean, as he claims, he lost the country, right? He's lost his job,
yeah.
He's lost his family. He lives in the United States now, but he feels that the fringe benefits, as you pointed out, outweigh the losses that he's had up to this point.
Very much so. I mean, it's a passion, because you sense that something is fundamentally right about what you're doing. It's a knowing that whatever it is that's involved in the crop circle mechanism is so fundamental to humanity as a message and as a mode of operation, that it's the kind of information that it brings with it. And I've seen people's lives be completely altered by their contact with the circles, spiritually much more so, that you feel a certain duty to represent what it is that the circle makes it trying to get here. It's almost like you become an ambassador for the phenomenon, and a very open-minded one at that, because we're still learning through all of this. We don't know all the answers. But it takes you over. You get a sense of responsibility that takes you over. And you can't help it. You have to follow that passion because it overwhelms every facet of your life. Because suddenly, once you realize what's behind it, who's behind it, how it's created, you realize there's something far greater here than you, and that you must become responsible to let people know what is going on. Whether they believe you or not is another matter, but at least as long as you put it in front of them and let them decide for themselves, that's the most important thing.
Right, so in the 10 years or so that you've been following it, what are the signs? What do you see in it? I mean, what have you basically discovered in your journey about crop circles?
Much more than I imagined. I thought I was dealing with two-dimensional shapes, and I found out that they're not only three-dimensional, they're also four-dimensional in the way we understand the world of the invisible world. The dimensions aren't so clearly defined in reality. The one thing I have found is that the symbols tend to communicate through the subconscious. It's almost like they're mirrors of humanity. And it seemed a bit strange to talk about that at the time until we began to look at the actual shapes and realize that the harmonics that are taking place behind the scenes are exactly that. They are communicating to the human subconscious right through the DNA structure. And by this I mean that, for example, if you take a crop circle that's a straight line with two circles on it, on one level you'll see that it's basically a dumbbell shape. Now if you look at the invisible geometry that links the shape of that circle to that circle over there and the space in between them, you'll find that it's full of geometric arrays, and all of these arrays are all related to sacred geometry, which itself is a distillation of planetary orbits and universal principles. But what even more fundamental is the fact that these geometric shapes actually underlie the very crystal structure of human DNA. So when we start saying, yes, I recognize these things and my body seems to vibrate with these designs, what's happening is that your DNA and the very molecules in your body are reacting to something that they recognize. You're looking in the mirror, essentially. And your brain can't process it because it defies logic at first level, but all the molecules in your body are reacting to it in a very favorable way. So when I hear people talking about changes in their lives, changes in their perspective, their level of awareness, then I can start believing it because you can validate that under a microscope as well. That fundamentally has been the biggest surprise to me, because it means that the whole communication is operating at a very, very common denominator level, right at the microbial level of life. It's imprinting information and it's helping people to wake up. So far above and beyond all the light phenomena that I've seen, the balls of light, the beams of light that I've witnessed, along with many farmers and many people, along with the scientific evidence with its soil changes, the changes in the way that plants have been molecularly altered, that's been the biggest one because it relates directly to fundamental human principles of who we are and where we're going.
So socially, you have seen over the years a very big change in regards to people's perspective, people's feelings and points of view about crop circles in England and around the world.
Yeah, I have, and I've also seen a great polarity taking place as well, because, and it was explained to me that once the light appears, so it attracts its natural opposite. And I find that in crop circles, whether it's just research or just in people who involve themselves with that, there's a huge polarization where people are either incredibly for the phenomenon or they're incredibly against it. There's very little grey middle